Shane Wright was granted exceptional status into the OHL in 2019. Coming into the 2022 NHL draft, Shane Wright was the consensus #1 overall pick. He ended up falling to number 4 and since then has become one of the most hated and mean players in the league. Wright is currently the captain of Team Canada in the 2023 World Juniors with hope of silencing his haters and reminding everyone how good he actually is. Today I'm going to simulate his career to see if he makes the teams that passed on him regret it or he turns out like Nail Yakupov. Alright, in year number 1, Shane Wright is a 78 overall, and similar to real life, he'll be starting on the 4th line. It'll be interesting to see how much he grows from here. At the end of year 1, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 41, 35, and 6. Shane Wright actually had a decent season, scoring 20 goals, 34 assists for 54 points in 82 games. But the Seattle Kraken would lose in the second round to the Anaheim Ducks. And the New York Islanders are your Stanley Cup champions. At the beginning of year number 2, Shane Wright has climbed 7 overalls to an 85, and he's now on the first line. At the end of year number 2, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 43, 36, and 3. Shane Wright finished with 13 goals, 51 assists for 64 points in 80 games. Unfortunately though, the Seattle Kraken would lose in the first round to the Calgary Flames, and the Florida Panthers end up winning the Stanley Cup. Shane Wright actually had a very good playoff run. Although it was only one round, he had 1 goal, 10 assists for 11 points in 7 games. Coming into year number 3, Shane Wright is now an 86 overall. He's on a very good first line with Matty Beniers and David Pastrnak. At the end of year number 3, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 37, 36, and 9, which was only good enough for 7th in their division, which means they did not make the playoffs. Shane Wright had 20 goals, 43 assists for 63 points in 82 games. And the Chicago Blackhawks are your Stanley Cup champions. Coming into year number 4, Shane Wright has jumped again, this time to an 88 overall. At the end of year 4, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 45, 26, and 11. Shane Wright had his best season to date, scoring 25 goals, 52 assists for 77 points in 82 games. But the Seattle Kraken would lose in the first round to the Anaheim Ducks. Shane Wright was over a point per game, scoring 2 goals, 6 assists for 8 points in 7 games in the first round of the playoffs. And the Dallas Stars have won the Stanley Cup. Coming into year number 5, Shane Wright is now a 90 overall, an elite first-line center. Also, I will be at the World Juniors this Thursday, the 28th. I'll be watching Sweden and Czechia and Canada and Austria. Go follow my TikTok. I will be posting some videos of the games. At the end of the year number 5, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 42, 35, and 5. Shane Wright had somewhat of a down year, only scoring 16 goals, tallying 52 assists for 68 points in 82 games. And the Seattle Kraken would lose yet again in the first round, this time to the Arizona Coyotes in 5 games. And the Columbus Blue Jackets are your Stanley Cup champions. Coming into year number 6, Shane Wright is an 89 overall. At the end of year number 6, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 40, 36, and 6, which was only good enough for 6th in their division, which means they did not make the playoffs. Shane Wright had a great year, scoring 27 goals, 60 assists for 87 points in 82 games. And the Anaheim Ducks are your Stanley Cup champions. Heading into year 7, Shane Wright is a 90 overall. At the end of year 7, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 44, 33, and 7. Shane Wright finished with 26 goals, 44 assists for 70 points in 82 games. But we would ultimately lose in the second round in Game 7 to the Edmonton Oilers. And of course, we end up losing to the eventual Stanley Cup champion Edmonton Oilers. Heading into year number 8, Shane Wright is an 89 overall. At the end of year number 8, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 45, 30, and 7. Shane Wright had somewhat of a down year, only scoring 14 goals, 47 assists for 61 points in 82 games. He was also a -9. And we would end up losing in the first round to the Dallas Stars. And the Toronto Maple Leafs are your Stanley Cup champions. This is how you know it's a video game. This shit would never happen in real life. Heading into year number 9, Shane Wright is an 89 overall. Hopefully this is the year the Seattle Kraken can get something meaningful done in the playoffs. I mean, my god, not even one deep playoff run yet. At the end of year number 9, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 40, 34, and 8. Shane Wright had a good year, scoring 23 goals, 57 assists for 80 points in 82 games. Unfortunately, the Kraken missed the playoffs, finishing 4th in their division. And the Montreal Canadiens are your Stanley Cup champions. Heading into year 10, Shane Wright is a 90 overall. He recently re-signed over the offseason for $11 million fucking dollars. Selfish Shane Wright over here. Good luck building a fucking championship contender around him. And predictably, the Seattle Kraken did not make the playoffs. They finished with a record of 36, 40, and 6, which was good enough for 7th in their division. Despite not making the playoffs, Shane Wright actually had a decent season, scoring 27 goals, 46 assists for 73 points in 82 games. I think we're going to have some rough years ahead of us here. And the Toronto Maple Leafs win another Stanley Cup. Heading into year 11, Shane Wright is an 89 overall. And the Seattle Kraken actually have a decent forward core. And not a bad top 4D. Kind of falls off in the bottom 6, but overall, not a bad team. Goalies are definitely a weaker point. An 84 and 82 overall. Hopefully this can be the year the Seattle Kraken have a deep playoff run. At the end of year 11, the Seattle Kraken finished with a horrible record of 33, 45, and 4, which was good enough for dead fucking last in their division. Shane Wright finished the year with 28 goals, 41 assists for 69 points in 82 games. And the Minnesota Wild are your Stanley Cup champions. Heading into year 12, Shane Wright is an 89 overall. I am hoping for this team to make the fucking playoffs at least. Give me some excitement at all. At the end of year 12, the Seattle Kraken had another awful year. They finished with a record of 32, 44, and 6, which was good enough for dead last in their division. Shane Wright had 29 goals, 42 assists for 71 points in 82 games. And the Chicago Blackhawks are your Stanley Cup champions. Heading into year 13, Shane Wright is an 89 overall. At the end of year 13, the Seattle Kraken finished with a record of 29, 44, and 9, which was good enough for 7th in their division. And another year down the drain. Shane Wright had 25 goals, 51 assists for 76 points in 71 games. He was also a +8, while his teammates Matthew Tkachuk and Maverick Bourque were -15 and -22. Barrett Hayton was a -24. Holy fuck. This team is fucking terrible. And the Edmonton Oilers have won the Stanley Cup. And it looks like Shane Wright has pulled a James Harden, requesting a trade and eating his way out of Seattle. So the Seattle Kraken have traded him to the Buffalo Sabres, and now he's paired up with Connor Bedard. Heading into year 14, Shane Wright is a 91 overall, and he's on an absolute stacked Buffalo Sabres team. At the end of year 14, the Buffalo Sabres finished with a record of 47, 26, and 8. Shane Wright had 16 goals, 56 assists for 72 points in 81 games. And the Buffalo Sabres would lose in round number 2 to the Florida Panthers. And the Pittsburgh Penguins are your Stanley Cup champions. Heading into year 15, Shane Wright has dropped to an 89 overall. But luckily for him, he's still on a very good Buffalo Sabres team. At the end of year 15, the Buffalo Sabres finished with a record of 43, 32, and 7. Shane Wright finished with 16 goals, 53 assists for 69 points in 82 games. And the Buffalo Sabres have won the Stanley Cup, which means Shane Wright has captured his first Stanley Cup in his career. I guess requesting a trade was the right move to make. Wright had 6 goals, 11 assists for 17 points in 22 games in the postseason. Heading into year 16, Shane Wright is an 89 overall. Will the Buffalo Sabres be able to repeat as champions? I guess we'll find out. At the end of year 16, the Buffalo Sabres finished with a record of 23, 50, and 9, which unfortunately means they won't repeat as champions. That is an awful record. 50 losses? 50 fucking losses? That's terrible, man. Shane Wright had 18 goals, 40 assists for 58 points in 82 games. And his contract is up at the end of the season, so it'll be interesting to see if he stays with Buffalo or heads to a different team to see if he can win a championship with them. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are your Stanley Cup champions. Heading into year 17, Shane Wright has decided to join the Colorado Avalanche, and he's currently an 88 overall at age 34. At the end of year 17, the Colorado Avalanche finished with a record of 36, 41, and 5, which was dead last in their division. Shane Wright had 20 goals, 46 assists for 66 points in 82 games. And the New York Islanders are your Stanley Cup champions. Heading into year 18, Shane Wright has dropped to an 87 overall. At the end of year 18, the Colorado Avalanche finished with a record of 42, 33, and 7, which was only good enough for 4th in their division, which means they did not make the playoffs. Shane Wright finished the year with 12 goals, 43 assists for 55 points in 62 games. And the New York Rangers are your Stanley Cup champions. And that'll do it. After 18 years, Shane Wright has decided to step away from hockey and retire from the NHL. He finished his career with 1,443 games played, 375 goals, 858 assists for 1,233 points. In the playoffs, he scored 21 goals, 60 assists for 81 points in 88 games played. Wrapping up his career, Shane Wright did not win any individual awards, but he did manage to capture 1 Stanley Cup in his career. But ultimately, he will be remembered more for requesting a trade out of Seattle to ring chase. Let me know in the comments below what player you'd like to see next.